Hello, fourth year students. So today's new poem is The Second Coming by William Butler Yeats. So again, we see that Yeats is actually one of the important, significant poets of the 20th century. So, as I think I have mentioned before, the explanation of Sailing to Byzantium, you cannot study the poetry of the 20th century without coming across at least one poem by Yeats, because actually he's one of those who were able to embody some of the main themes and ideas and even techniques that are related to modernism. So this poem, The Second Coming, if we try to know something general about the poem before we start with the poem itself. So The Second Coming is one of William Butler Yeats' most famous poems. Actually, it's really famous. That's why it's included in your curriculum. Written in 1919, this is important to know when the poem was written. You see this date, this year, 1919, because it was the year, 1 year after, almost 1 year after the end of what? The First World War. You see, and we all know what kind of war it was, the First World War, and it is you see, it is a time in between the First World War and the second one. This time period was also some kind of confusing period of time. Great changes took place. I'm not just talking about, of course, political and social or economical changes. Of course, these are huge changes that took place, but also we are speaking about kind of, let's say, even psychological. On the level of psychology, we are speaking about the devastation that these wars has created in the minds and the souls of people who are living in that period. And it was actually reflected in literature in a very deep way. So it was written in this time, and actually, the world was still in chaos, still in confusion after the war. It describes a deeply mysterious and powerful alternative. Notice this alternative. You have to pay attention to this idea, to the Christian idea of the second coming. First of all, what does this title suggest? The second coming. Which coming? Actually, it's a very well known prophecy that Jesus Christ, in the Bible, Jesus Christ promised to come again to save humanity. You know that in the Christian tradition, Jesus Christ is the savior of humanity, and he's coming again in order to save humanity once more. So, you see, Jesus prophesied return to the earth, okay, as a savior, as a savior, announcing the kingdom of heaven. So this is something that, the believers of Christianity believe that at a certain point it is going to happen in future, that Jesus Christ is coming a second time, and he's going to save humanity from all the troubles and all the, let's say, destruction that happened, and he's going to establish and announce the kingdom of heaven. Okay, so the poem's first stanza describes a world of chaos, confusion, and pain. And this is something, let's say, this is what we expect after war. This is what happens. What kind of world we expect after a war which killed millions of people. You see, millions of people were brutally killed in this war. So still the world is living in this state of confusion and pain. The second stanza, you see, the poem is not actually a long one, just two stanzas, which is also the longer stanza, imagines the speaker receiving a vision of the future. So, after describing what's happening, sorry, in the world, what kind of confusion is still taking place, the kind of feeling, the kind of atmosphere in the world, after describing it in the first stanza. And the second one, the speaker imagines something about the future, because, you know, when the world reaches to such a state, people start to think, what's coming next? What about our future? Uh, what's the future of humanity after this war? And of course, since we know this is something in the past, we know what happened next. We know that after this war, after several years, what happens? Another war takes place, which is the Second World War, which was also as brutal as the first one. You see? So again, it seems that the vision actually of a future is not a promising one. So what happens in this second stanza? The speaker receiving a vision. So the speaker in the poem actually has some kind of a dream or a vision of what's going to happen in future. But this vision replaces Jesus' heroic return with what seems to be the arrival of a grotesque beast. So, although the speaker suggests that he's thinking of the second coming of Jesus Christ, what he sees in his own dreams, what he envisions in the future is not the coming of Jesus Christ, but some kind of creature that is very strange, fierce. It is some kind of a beast. So instead of the coming of Jesus Christ, the speaker imagines that a beast is coming. And this shows actually how deeply people were really affected by war. They were not able to see any hope in the future. Okay? With its distinct imagery and vivid description of society's collapse, so the Second Coming, the poem, is also one of Yeats' most quoted poems. So let's see if we go through the line by line explanation. And by the way, it's not a very difficult poem. Actually, the the expressions, the descriptions are very clear, and even the symbols. So what does it say? Turning and turning in the widening gyre. Notice the word gyre here. Gyre has, this is the second time in sailing to Byzantium. We also witnessed this word. It was used uh, by William Butler Yeats, and actually this is something that Yeats, this concept, we will explain it here, is very unique in the poetry of William Butler Yeats. So turning and turning, notice this kind of motion, turning in the widening gyre. The falcon cannot hear the falconer. You know the falcon and the falconer? I have put an image here. This is what he means. The falcon, this is the falcon. You know this bird? It's one of the this is a kind of bird that is actually it's huge in size. It flies all the time. It has no nests. It doesn't live in a particular place. It keeps flying in the mountains in nature. This is something of its nature, يعني. And this is a falconer. Sometimes these birds are trained, and when they are trained, the person who trains them is called falconer, like this person. Okay, and if you have ever seen any falcon and falconer, you see that the falconer is standing, for example, at a certain point, and he has trained this falcon to move around him like this, for example, move and move and move, as if the falconer is, as if he's in the center, okay, as if he's a point in the center, and this falcon is flying around the center. But no matter how the falcon flies and flies, at the end it goes back to the center. You see, because it is trained. This is some kind of an order, a system. You see, the falcon, because it is well trained, it doesn't go far away. Even if it flies, for example, it makes big circles around the falconer. It moves around and around in a spiral movement. This is really important. The spiral movement. In Arabic we call it احنا نسميها الحركة اللولبية. You see, حركة اللولبية. It is not a circular, just like this circle. It is circular, but it is increasing. You see? So maybe you start with a small circle, then a bigger circle, and a bigger, it just widens. You notice when he said widening gyre, what does it mean widening? It means it is a circular motion that is getting bigger and bigger, but it is moving around a center. There is a center, okay? And this center gives this spiral movement a kind of consistency, okay? If there is no center, this spiral movement breaks, okay? And when it breaks, this is a problem. You see, for example, this falcon, if it moves away and it doesn't go back to the falconer, here happens what? Confusion. And this is what he's trying to say in the poem. Notice here, turning and turning in the widening gyre. So this falcon or this movement, this spiral movement, it is usually happening in a consistent way. But notice what's happening here. The falcon cannot hear the falconer. And we said, as I explained to you, when the falcon cannot communicate with the falconer, it means that the problem is happening here, a confusion. The system has broken. There is no order. Things fall apart. Okay? The center cannot hold. The center cannot hold. So in these three lines, we can see that the poet is giving us an idea of what? Of how confused and troubled the world has become. Okay? It has lost the center. It has lost the connection or any kind of communication. So flying around, notice here this explanation, flying around and around in a widening spiral, a falcon can no longer hear the call of its owner. This is the problem, a serious one. The falcon to have flown so rapidly out of the reach of the falconer, this shows us how the delicate balance of the world has been upset. So there is a problem with the balance of the world. It is troubled now. Okay? And this is what happened after war, actually. He's describing the state of the world in real, let's say, in the aftermath of the First World War. Turning and turning means what? It means spinning spiral. The spiral movement is really symbolic here, and it bears a great meaning, which symbolizes infiniteness. Okay? So, mere anarchy is loosed upon the world. Anarchy, يعني فوضى عارمة. The blood-dimmed tide is loosed. So, loosed means now it is everywhere. When you look around, you can see blood, you can see chaos, you can see confusion everywhere. Okay? And everywhere the ceremony of innocence is drowned. So such things as innocence also have been lost in this world. The best lack all conviction. So those good people, the sometimes you feel that the hope is still or can be found in good people, but even those who are good or the best, they are holding themselves back. They are not doing anything. While the worst are full of passionate intensity. While the evil ones, the bad ones, what are they doing? Actually, they are really powerful and they are doing their best in order to spread destruction everywhere. So pure destruction and chaos have spread across the world, and so has a tidal wave darkened by blood. All the rituals of innocence have been swallowed by this tide. Okay, so it seems that evil has swallowed good. You see, it has dominant presence now over goodness. The best people are not motivated to act. Actually, when you come out of a war that destroyed everything, people even started to lose faith in their own beliefs, or let's say even in believing in goodness itself. So what happened to people after war? This is really a confusing state. But the worst people are impassioned and eager. This is a very miserable state of the world. The second stanza, actually, it's longer, and I've just broken down the second stanza into two parts so that I can explain it clearly. Okay. يعني هي بالأساس مقطعين القصيدة، لكن أنا المقطع الثاني بس هيك جزأت لغرض التوضيح just to make things clear. Okay. Surely some revelation is at hand. Maybe this chaos or confusion is a preparation for something great or some kind of revelation. There must be something that could happen, could be happening in future. So in the second stanza, the biblical imagery takes over the visions of the corrupted nature. It seems that the poet now, or the speaker in this second stanza, entered into a state of vision. He started to envision things or dream of things. Okay? The second coming, surely the second coming is at hand. Now, notice the repetition of the second coming in these two lines. In the first line here, when he said, surely the second coming is at hand. The second coming? You see, sometimes when you say something and the thing that you have said suddenly reminds you of something else, and you repeat it to yourself in order to think about it. What? The second coming? What about the second coming? Hardly are those words out when a vast image out of a spiritus mundi troubles my sight. So when he mentioned the second coming, as if suddenly some kind of image came into his mind. Okay? The mentioning of these words, as if it has what motivated his imagination, and he started to think of something suddenly, some kind of insight or an epiphany took place in his mind or imagination. So from the start, Yeats ties his poem to religion. Actually, we can say that this part is religious, this part of the poem. The second coming of Jesus Christ is at hand. It must be part of an event of apocalyptic proportions. Apocalyptic means something like a doomsday, maybe. Okay? Something huge that causes a great change in the whole world. Okay? This must be a second coming, he thinks. He thought maybe after this war, after the destruction, maybe finally Jesus Christ is coming. He expected that. But what happens is, instead of thinking or instead of having the image of Jesus Christ in his vision, what did he see? Notice here. Somewhere in sands of the desert, a shape with lion body and the head of a man, a gaze blank and pitiless as the sun is moving its slow thighs, while all about it real shadows of the indignant desert birds. So what did he see? Instead of, when he mentioned the word second coming, instead of, for example, envisioning Jesus Christ, what did he see? He saw a beast. And what is it like? A beast where? In the sands of the desert. It is moving in some kind of desert. It is a beast with a lion body and the head of a man, something like sphinx, مثل أبو الهول. شايفين أبو الهول بمصر؟ يعني رأس إنسان, head of man, and a lion body. So what kind of beast it is, and why instead of seeing Jesus Christ he sees this beast? Okay, so this must be, he thinks, this must be an apocalypse like the one predicted in the Bible's book of Revelation. But what does he see? He sees a desert in his mind's eye and observes a lion with a man's head, also known as phoenix, moving slowly, you see. And of course it's very fierce, and it causes fear and kind of let's say confusion around it. So as it is moving while angry, when you look at the gaze, look at it, a gaze blank and pitiless as the sun. Actually, it has very angry and fierce gaze in its eyes, this beast. So when it is moving, what happens to the creatures around it, like birds? Fearful birds flutter around, casting shadows on the sand. Okay? So it is coming and it is causing other creatures to kind of be afraid. The darkness drops again, but now I know that 20 centuries of stony sleep were vexed to nightmare by a rocking cradle. So suddenly, the poet comes out of his vision and he realizes that he's now in this time, which is the 20th century. It means 2000 years since the coming of Jesus Christ, the first coming. So Yeats finds himself suddenly back in his own body and mind, out of the surreal dreamlike scene. So you see sometimes when you are sitting by yourself, you have some kind of dreams while you're still awake, daydreaming, and suddenly you feel that you're out of a blue, you come out of these dreams. It happens actually. So 2000 years, 2000, when he said 20 centuries, he means, of course, 2000 years of calm have been irreversibly disrupted by the shaking of a cradle. We're vexed to nightmare by a rocking cradle, and what rough beast its hour come round at last slouches towards بيت لحم يعني هاي مدينة بفلسطين اللي هي مكان ميلاد السيد المسيح. Slouches towards Bethlehem to be born. So instead of expecting Jesus Christ, this final hope, let's say, for humanity, what is the vision that the poet or the speaker sees? It is a vision of actually more disastrous situation for humanity, more chaos, more destruction, and maybe more, let's say, aggression. Okay, so this is a kind of we can call it kind of a prophecy of what's going to happen in future. And we actually, based on our knowledge of history, we can say that he was right. Instead of being hopeful, the poet here is actually really thinking ahead in a very realistic way. So the speaker asks, what beast, whose time has finally come, is dragging itself towards Bethlehem where it will be born? Instead of expecting Jesus Christ to come to save humanity, it seems that the situation, the state of humanity is getting worse. Okay? Actually, I don't think it's a very difficult poem, and it's very easy to understand what are the main themes and symbols in this poem. But let's just go through them again. The falconer, this is a symbol actually, it's a very important symbol, representing humanity's attempt to control its world. So when the falconer lose control of the falcon and couldn't call it to come back again to him, it means we have loss of control. Okay, and the falconer could represent humanity and its inability to grab control over the world, has lost its falcon in the turning gyre. The gyre, again, is also a symbol. The gyre is an image Yeats uses to symbolize grand, sweeping historical movements as a kind of spiral. Actually, the idea here for Yeats is that in general, history moves in a kind of a spiral. Okay, it is not moving in a linear, straight way. It is a spiral. It is moving, and unfortunately, it seems that this system is losing control. The poem suggests that though humanity might have looked like it was making a progress over the past 20 centuries through knowledge and scientific developments, the First World War proved people to be as capable of self-destruction as ever. So, after 2000 years, through which we know that human beings have developed in every aspect. We have new inventions, we have scientific development, we have progress, we have civilization. Man created civilization, right? But when we reach to the 20th century, and specifically when the First World War happened, and we saw this great destruction that happens, the killing of millions of people, we actually start to lose hope in humanity. What about all these years of progress and development? What about these all these years of civilization? Where did they go? How were people able, or how human beings were able to go back to this state of destruction and death? Though humans have tried to civilize themselves and improve their world, perhaps their more beastly animal nature has only been hidden, but not defeated. So actually, human beings still have this kind of beastly nature in them. It was just hidden in civilization, actually. Civilization has made kind of, you see, just make it hidden, that's all, but it's still there. And when this war happened, it seems that this beastly nature revealed itself again. Okay? Okay? The beast might symbolize, what about the beast? It could be also a symbol, might symbolize that civilization itself is a kind of illusion. So we were illusioned to think that human beings have really reached to a point of great development and progress. The human head has a gaze that lacks empathy, suggesting that the beast is ready to kill. Okay? Given that the poem was written between the two world wars of the 20th century, this surreal image seems to gesture towards humankind's ever improving capacity for self destruction. So the poet actually is here. It seems to us actually he's hopeless. He's not able to see any kind of progress or any kind of hope for humanity in the future, especially that we know actually exactly that he has written this poem in the uh, period before the breaking out of the Second World War. And he expected that humanity is actually going to get worse, in a worse situation than it has witnessed after the First World War. And actually, we agree with him. We agree with him. So this is just kind of can say a brief explanation for the poem. I think it's very clear what the poem is about, and I hope that you get benefit from this explanation in your studies. Thank you very much for listening.